I am very pleased to announce that Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe, Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe ji is already there in the meeting, our chief guest of the day. Can I now request Professor Sahasrabudhe to please unmute himself?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. At the last 5 minutes or so, I was listening to Professor K.K. Agarwal, and there is no denying a fact that whatever he said is absolutely the right thing to do. Number one, whether COVID or post-COVID, some amount of online will have to start. We have already started in a way. About 3 years ago, with the very fact that indigenously a MOOCs platform called Swayam was developed by MHRD via AICTE, and Microsoft was for this particular reason that the world is slowly moving towards online education and we must not be taken aback. And therefore, more than 2,500 courses, 1.5 crore people, 117 countries using this itself is a proof of that we have been in the game. But having said this, and started with 20% credits being allowed by both UGC and AICTE for transfer of credits through the MOOCs platform Swayam, we are now thinking of increasing the percentage to 30 or 40%. And Professor Agarwal rightly pointed out that what is the blend and what is the ratio that one has to have between face-to-face and through the mode of online education. This will differ from department to department, discipline to discipline, and therefore a lot of exercise is required. Even in the case of AICTE itself, not now, it may be called not necessarily online, but gradually it is moving towards online. What is known as open and distance learning education, which exists through IGNOU and many other universities, has been ongoing for various disciplines. For example, arts and various types of humanities and social sciences courses, commerce, and so on. But when it comes to science and engineering, it had been already held up. Nevertheless, some amount of activity happened in some time, and Supreme Court has also come very lethally against online education in engineering. And therefore, 100% online engineering education is not likely to happen in the long future. In fact, not necessarily immediately, but at least quite some time. However, use of technology and empowerment should continue. We should not stop at only face-to-face mode because of a variety of reasons. Number one, the cost of education in the brick and mortar model where student has to go to the class every day is very expensive. In order to reduce the costs, this is one part. Second part is every institution cannot have the champion faculty. So there are some faculty who we call sometimes a champion faculty or the best faculty, and they may be not in your institution but some other institution. How do we leverage the existence of excellent faculty in some other institute to the advantage of our institute? I think this is where again online becomes very significant and important. The local faculty may help in solving certain difficulties, giving them some prerequisite background. But when a faculty who is very passionate teaches a subject, I think understanding becomes much, much better. And therefore, we must make use of online. Now, coming to even experiments, in fact, there are two schools of thought, and also it is a reality that doing experiments online is not going to teach right way of engineering for many students. Example of structural engineering was taken. It could be IC engines, it could be aircraft design, and so on. So I think on one side, it is very important that practice and practical aspects are very significant and important, especially in the domain of engineering, medicine, pharmacy, and such subjects. But if you look at the technology, the way it is developing, some of the courses and some of the labs certainly can be done in the online mode through simulation-based experiments. We call them as virtual labs. It is not necessarily abroad, but within the country itself, as an extension of NPTEL, there are a large number of laboratories which have been already developed by many institutions, all IITs and some other institutions together. We call them as virtual labs, and large number of experiments on simulation basis are available. In fact, it is much easier to tweak with the parameters and understand what is the outcome of that experiment, much easier and much better compared to an actual experiment. But in an actual experiment, you can do on an equipment only one experiment. But here, it takes time. Here, it is a simulation, and therefore, all the parameters are embedded in the form of the program, and one can run it and change the parameters very easily. And learning becomes much efficient. Going beyond, in fact, there are augmented reality, virtual reality based experiments where in fact, it would be even better than the normal experiment, because in the normal experiment, we will be operating from outside. And in the augmented reality, virtual reality, one can enter into the system. So suppose in an IC engine, you move along with a piston inside a cylinder. You can get into a turbo machine and along with the blades rotate. I think that will give a much better idea of the experiment that is going on. But nevertheless, if you take, for example, the aircraft pilots, they are all trained on the simulators earlier, and then they are given the actual aircraft. So that training will also supplement the actual requirement of training on the actual machine. Suppose if someone goes directly onto the aircraft, probably there may be an accident which is more risky. In fact, simulators are much useful. But nevertheless, one who is having a large experience, hundreds of hours of piloting on a simulator and giving him an aircraft, and now say that you without a co-pilot you go, I think that is very, very risky. So, and therefore both models are to go hand in hand. I think I'm giving some of these examples. Now coming to the system of the post-COVID era, there are 2-3 things which are challenges which are being addressed. Number one, the last semester, last year, which has gone by, the syllabus was not completed. Some of them did it in online mode and some of them in another mode. But now we have to complete their semester. Examinations are to be taken in. There are many models which UGC has recommended. Either you take basis of all the continuous evaluation and give them grades. You may conduct an online objective type examination and give grades. You may call them in batches and conduct a full-fledged examination. You can give them a problem statement and ask them to submit the assignments. I think you can take a Viva. So there could be a variety of ways of conducting exam and get into the new semester as early as possible so that our normal life will begin. The second part is when the college is open, we don't want all the students to come together. Therefore, maybe 30%, maybe up to maximum 50% students every day will come. Remaining 50% will have to attend classes from home, from the respective hostel rooms. And if this has to be arranged, I think IT infrastructure in terms of within the college, whether it is the number of servers, the bandwidth has to improve, and it has to also spread to all the students where they are located. Some of the students may be in a remote locality, and bandwidth connection there itself is a very, very challenge actually. And therefore, the government's role is to establish as many possible interventions as possible in order to make BharatNet a most successful one, reaching to every village, every hamlet. And if we are able to do that, I think the education will be available at the doorsteps. Then who can come to the physical college and who will not can be decided by the institutions and the universities. I think that is going to be the way forward. Then when it comes to exams and also long-term, written examination, we always depend on what is known as proctored examination, and therefore technology has also enabled proctored examination, and therefore we can make use of that partially or fully. So the way forward, as Professor K.K. Agarwal rightly said, that we need not necessarily only because of experiments and practicals that one has to come to a physical college. That also is necessary in certain courses. But more importantly, there are other aspects of life which come through interaction, whether it is working in teams. We may also work in teams on the computer by networking, but the effectiveness that one can get through in the physical mode is different from that of the mode in which one can actually join on a computer. Secondly, we need to play games. We need to do exercise. I think we cannot do exercise on a computer and say that I have done my yoga. So I hope people understand that people have to come to the physical spaces where they will interact with each other. There will be lots of clubs in the organizations, whether it is a club for aero modeling, whether it is for Baha, automotive manufacture and computations, whether it is robotics. I think a lot of activity which students do normally in a college, they learn much better than in the actual classroom. And therefore, the physical infrastructure and the classroom model will also continue to be there. And I hope we have to really learn the methodology of blend. And some places blend can be 100-0 and 0-100. For example, for MBA and for MCA, and also recently travel and tourism postgraduate diplomas and degrees, we have allowed fully online education. And in fact, these were already allowed in the ODL mode when we were not having face-to-face class, and the written material in the form of books and notes were given by the best faculty for reading by students by sending them by post earlier and gradually sending PDF files. We had already entered into the era of online. Whatever we called earlier as ODL is slowly merging itself into what is known as now online mode. The only factor which is very, very significant and important is whether the quality of material, that is for reading and for viewing, which is given for students for learning, is it of high quality? That's number one. Number two, whenever a student gets a doubt, which can easily be handled in a classroom environment, how effectively we can satisfy the thirst for knowledge and what student is looking for through technology is also an important aspect. We have enough what is known as discussion fora, then blogs through which a student can raise a question, and then many others, not necessarily only teachers, other peers also give the answer, and if answer is not right, someone else chips in and then he will correct the person. I think that mode of learning is also effective, and one has to explore that methodology of learning. And lastly, impersonations in examinations are also very common, and therefore how technology can enable for conducting an examination online. I think these are facets where a lot of debate, discussion will continue. Someone will say everything can be online. Someone will say nothing should be online. I think we have to decide the blend in every department and take a decision at the level of university. And also one more important thing, how much infrastructure of IT is already available, enabled in that region is also very important. In the online mode, when we started after COVID-19, many students said that we don't have internet bandwidth. We were not able to get the lecture, although our faculty were teaching, but we were not getting that. And therefore, there is some part which the government has to play, some part which the private institutions have to play, individuals have to play. And I have been talking about donating smartphones which are there in our homes. All well-to-do families, if you go and hunt there in their houses, you will find at least 5 to 6 old smart mobile phones, because every time you keep changing as and when a new model comes in. So can we repair and hand it over as donation to libraries, which can be accumulated there like library books, and those who are not capable of buying those, can we give them and also give data which is free for about downloading, say, 100 GB or something like that per year. I think a lot of possibilities do exist. I think with this I will conclude, and if there are any questions later, I think I will be taking up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Sir, thank you very much. Sir, with such a clarity, you have touched upon almost all points. I will just take 2 minutes of yours, if you permit me. You are heard not just by the chairpersons of various institutions of UP and elsewhere. You are also heard by thousands of faculty members and students. Our number is checked, it is for about 500, but they represent thousands of or lakhs of them. So there are two issues which are very, very important, because you are the father figure for all the private institutions. Private institutions in this country are almost about 75% of technical education. Now they are, with the time, are closing down. Now one after the other they are closing down is one issue. The other issue is that teachers are not getting, proper salary, and teachers are really in jeopardy. The institution's sustainability self-sustainability is really a big issue. So my request to you is, sir, as the chairman AICTE, you could recommend it to the government or ask the government to pay some amount, like we are paying it to the employees which are out of the job in industry and elsewhere. We are trying to help them financially. Can we not do it for the teachers? And second thing is, the institutes are closing down because of certain reasons. Can we not look at them and revisit them, like teacher-student ratio, like the library, like you can't run PGDM and MBA together? These are kind of restrictions. If we let them do, I think they would be able to sustain. If you could touch upon them and bless them, I would be very pleased and they would be very pleased. Please speak, sir. Please.
So now, number one, I think government giving a special package for faculty members may not be possible. See, it is under tremendous stress in order to cater to various segments. This can be raised as a possible demand from the institutions, faculty members, and can be submitted. But I have my own serious doubts about whether it is going to be feasible. And therefore, you can certainly try for that, but my best wishes for you. The second part of that, which was very, very important, is many colleges are getting closed down. And one of the reasons is possibly the numbers that we increased were more than what is necessary for our country. See, whenever supply is more than the demand, this problem arises. This is number one. Number two, many states, they enacted whatever known as university acts and then gave permissions for large number of private universities to be established. And the number of students that they can take in, there is no regulation because neither UGC has a control nor AICTE. And therefore, the number of students that they could take had been about 10 times a normal engineering college. And therefore, it is almost like 10 colleges were getting affected actually in the process. So that is one of the major things which started happening. The third one, despite all this, those who have maintained quality, they have been able to be successful despite many private and deemed universities coming in place. So I think we have to address the problem in multiple ways. Number one, if there are private universities which are enacted by the state assemblies, there must be check and the quality of education that they are important has to be seen. And they cannot get it. That is number one. Number two, help all those institutions who are on the borderline. How do they improve their quality? And therefore, our Margdarshak and Margdarshan scheme is essentially for that, helping them to get accreditation, helping them to improve the quality. I think this will also go on. As far as student-teacher ratio is concerned, it was already reduced from 1:15 to 1:20. And now that there is a likelihood of more number of courses being taken through the MOOCs platform, we are always constantly looking at what changes are to be done. The last part, the fourth important part is our fee regulations by the state governments when they impose onto the private self-financed colleges. They are many times not beyond, what I can say is not up to the mark, because if the salary is to be given as per the 6th pay or 7th pay commission and maintain the same ratio as what we are saying 1:15 or 1:20, the amount of money that is required has to be met from the source, which is single source for private institutions, is the tuition fee. And this tuition fee is not allowed to be raised, again, because of our reasoning that it is not affordable to large number of students on one side, and the budgetary provision that the state government have to make for catering to the education of the underprivileged, SC/ST, is beyond the reach of many state governments. And therefore, I think this whole problem has to be seen holistically. And a middle path has to be brought in where fee also is regulated. We cannot allow commercialization of education on one side, but institutions cannot run by bringing in money from where? Actually, many of the institutions will have the great difficulty, and therefore they cut corners, and then salaries are not paid, or the enough number of faculty as are required are not maintained. And that is where the challenge exists. And I hope the new education policy, which is on the cards, when it comes, many other possibilities do emerge. Lastly, we have allowed already every institution who is not in the good shape to start other educational programs from the same premises by sharing of resources. Earlier, I remember about 5, 6 years, 10 years ago, if an institution was having an architecture college and a pharmacy college and an engineering college, the experts who were visiting were asking not necessarily different infrastructure, but they were also asking where is the boundary between these three. And when we talk about interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, talking about boundaries between these different types of institutions is meaningless. So those Berlin walls are already broken. But what we are also envisaging today is why not in the same building a management program and an engineering program can run. I think to that extent we have been quite liberal. But for every program, whatever number of classrooms are required, faculty are required, you must maintain them so that quality of education is not affected. I hope I have answered most of the things, some of the things which may not be palatable to all of you, but I have to speak out that, and some of them where it is not possible, I have to, candidly say that it is not possible.
To make. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to hear me, sir? Sir, my request is that please organize a webinar with all the chairpersons of the institute one day and have listen to them, because things are not as simple as they appear to be. There are so much of complex, and I can come and help in that process. Maybe consider it, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Nene, thank you very much. In fact, on some other occasion, we had a webinar. It's not webinar. In fact, our student induction program and universal human values 5-day workshop, we exclusively conducted for the chairman of the managing committees of all the institutions, private institutions mainly. I think something similar we can always hold and have discussions on your issues and problems and how best we can help you out. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for gracing the occasion, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining the event, sir. Thank you so much.
You are so great, sir. You are the best AICTE chairman. Such clarity of thoughts you have. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.